What's up, fam? It's Brian Castrillo, and I just watched The Walking Dead, episode 18, season 11, and we're going to get into this. But before we do, I got to ask you guys a favor. I am in the Face of Horror competition. I am in the top 5. This is basically like the conference championship for my group. I am in 3rd position, and if I'm going to move on, I got to be first. So I need you guys to get out there and vote. Share. There is an option if you want what are called scare votes. This goes to the B Plus Foundation, and these votes, if you do buy them, go to help families with pediatric cancer. But at least I'm hoping to get the free votes out of you, and propel me back into first place. I am only in this position because of you guys, so I owe everything to you guys. I love you guys, but let's get started. So episode 18, this feels kind of like the calm before the storm, but a lot happened here. And we're starting again with the nostalgia. Judah's talking. We see Merle, we see Hershel, we see Carl, and they're definitely hitting us right in our feels. They're I don't even know how it's going to be when we get that final episode, but yeah, you guys are doing it. You're hitting us in our feels, and we walk in from basically the previous episode where we saw Lance. He's being held by knife point by Daryl, and then in comes Mercer right in the beginning, and he's basically saying, everybody put their hands down, come in like a fucking boss. And speaking of swearing, Daryl drops the F-bomb, and when he's telling Daryl, it's not worth it, not this way, and he's basically saying, do what you fucking gotta do. And I'm like, damn, they're making this intense, and I love it. But I wish we had that F-bomb from Rick back in the cards back when we were at Terminus, but I digress. But I mean, it is another scene. Like, if you get the Blu-ray, you can still see it like that. But one of the big things to take away from that is we do see Carol and Daryl kind of a little bit at odds right now. And I don't like seeing that. I mean, I am Carol. Team Carol all the way. And that's kind of like how I feel like the end game will be. But because Carol basically says that she made a deal, and Daryl's like, what did you do? And then he finally gives up, and he throws Lance's hand down, takes his big ass fucking Rambo knife, stabs him in the hand, and that was the end of that. And then he goes off, Lance goes off with basically Pamela and Mercer and that whole, and then we see the title screen, and the title is starting to fill up with more blood. So of course, seeing a lot of blood in that is making me nervous. We're gonna lose some people, but I mean, this is the end. We got to get prepared for it, fam. But yeah, but after he stabs his hand, he's like, don't worry, he'll live, and which I thought was funny. Then we see Mercer and Lance. Mercer has Lance kind of tied up, and Lance is kind of begging him about moving him for ants, and Mercer basically didn't give a shit. But the biggest thing that I want to take away from that scene is not only was this scene intense, but there's a moment where Pamela's talking to him, and she's basically saying that, you messed up. Once you get back, you're done. And Lance basically, he kind of threatened him, and he said, you're still going to need me, because there's going to be certain alliances that if something happens to me, things are going to happen with the Commonwealth. And of course, my mind's going directly to the CRM. And one thing I've said before, and in my opinion, I believe, and this is just kind of in my head, that if you remember that conversation that Connie had where she was talking about Pamela Milton's uncle, what if that guy is General Beale? I mean, that would be a crazy connection. The CRM, I mean, they're coming. So, and Lance clearly has, some connections, but no one really knows where this uncle went. What if he is General Beale? I think that'd be kind of cool. But then we see Pam. She gets back, and I think it's the old train station where she's talking, and she's basically getting the people back on her side. I mean, they were rioting the streets for her son's head, but now she's getting them back on their side. But if you're watching the faces, they're basically kind of rolling their eyes. I mean, some of them are clapping. They want to be there for him. But that kind of gets going. But then we see, some of our family, they're starting to say where they're going. And one of the key ones is Aaron. I mean, he is off to Oceanside. So are we going to now we're going to see Luke and, Cindy, where have they been? And then you remember that trailer where we had, Lance, and I kind of did a little edit where because he basically reminded me of Two-Face and he's flipping that coin. So that scene is coming. I'm curious as to what is happening at Oceanside, and I'm nervous for my peeps at Oceanside. Then there's kind of a cute moment where, I believe it was Daryl was talking to Lydia, or maybe it was Carol. Irregardless, the key moment was when Elijah came up, and no, it was Carol, and she, you could tell him and Lydia are getting close, and they're talking about being on the road for a few weeks because Lydia doesn't want to. But they're hinting at that relationship, kind of pulling us in. That looks like they're going to be a thing, which, I mean, we saw it coming. I'm kind of happy for him. But the big moment in this scene is we got Daryl, and he gives Judith Rick's gun, and Judith doesn't want it. She said, and it seems like, they're kind of a little bit at odds. They end up arguing because Judith is kind of calling Daryl out, saying you don't want to stay and fight and blah, blah, blah. And one of the things I even mentioned before a while ago is I felt like some of our fam was going to be kind of at odds as to whether or not they wanted to leave the Commonwealth. But Rick and Judith start to argue, and she says she doesn't want anything to do with the gun. And then we see Ezekiel. He doesn't want to leave. He feels like this is, a chance for him to be another kingdom, to help people. So he doesn't want to leave. Then we see Pamela. She's teaching her son, Sebastian, how to lead. And, she's kind of giving him the drill, and he doesn't want to hear it. And there's a scene that comes into that later, but I'm going to come back to that. But then another moment, we got Negan and his wife, Annie, who's pregnant, and they got the baby monitor up there. And Negan's basically saying that he's thinking about his father and how he was basically telling him that, when you're a dad, it's different and you don't want to leave. But Annie's like, no, we have to. People are counting on us. We cannot stay here. And Negan was kind of getting sentimental. He didn't really want to leave, and he's thinking about his dad voice. But then we see a scene with Daryl putting on that vest, and of course it focuses in on the wing that Judith put there. And speaking of Judith, there was a scene in the nostalgia moment in the beginning. They showed Daryl holding her as a baby, back when he was calling her a little ass kicker, and Daryl goes up to RJ and he asks where Judith is, and RJ's like, I was told not to say anything. But so Judith took off because, she's upset with Daryl. And then we see Daryl and Carol talking about parenting, talking about he doesn't know, what he's doing. I hope I'm doing it right. I think he even asked, like, what would Rick do in this scene. Then we see another one was Eugene and Max. They went to go visit Lance in the jail cell, and he's trying to pump some information out of him about Pamela and Sebastian. And the big thing about that is he tells him that, the Miltons, they're very formidable. There's not really a lot you can do, but if you're going to do something, you better be ready to burn the whole place down, because it's not going to work any other way. And he even says, you both have to live with it unless you're willing to burn the whole place down. Then we see Rosita and Coco and Father Gabriel in the church talking about how, he's given this up, and she's basically saying that, this is your legacy. This is going to be here long after you're gone. He talks about the food that was left by his parishioners, and he's kind of getting sentimental, but Rosita's like, no, we got to go. But then he's like, well, no, I just wish I could have got some cotton candy. So just kind of a lighthearted moment. But then they find Judith there, and of course they're going to tell Daryl who that she's there because she was looking through some books or something like that. Then we see fake Stephanie, and who I'm just going to keep calling Triple H's body double, because if you look at him real quick, he's got Triple H's kind of signature look going on right now. And they come in and basically shoot the cleaning crew in the chest on purpose, so that way they can reanimate. Then we see Daryl catching up with Judith and in the church, and he's relating to her, and he talks about how, like, when he was young and he wanted to get away from his dad, he'd go down by the river and he understood that that's what she needed, her own time, her own space, and needed to get away. And he basically was saying, I don't really know what I'm doing, I'm basically learning as we go. But he said, I'm going to hold on to this gun until you decide you want it, and it's going to be here for you. Then back to that scene where Pam and her son Sebastian. This scene had me cracking up because Sebastian's like saying he doesn't want to do this stupid speech that she wants him to do, and he's like, I'm gonna sound like a douchebag, and then she's like, you'll be great. And when she said that, I literally started cracking up laughing, because it was funny that his mom was getting on him about that. Then we see Max, she starts pouring a drink, and of course last time they were in the office, he was drunk and he started spilling information. So, Max, being the smart lady that she is, she starts pouring him a drink, and she starts getting him to talk. And it's almost like, he had this vulnerable moment, and I felt like, at least in his perspective when Max was talking to him, that, he felt that she was, trying to help him. And that maybe kind of got him to change his heart a little bit. But she recorded him on this old old school cassette tape recorder, which that was kind of interesting that she had that, and she was able to hide that. Well, not really hide it, but at least he didn't notice it. But now we're coming on Founders Day, and they got a wrestling ring there. They're getting ready to do, this whole big event. And you see Eugene, he's up on the, the stage as they're getting everything ready. They, the wrestling event's going on, and they even got a guy, I'm forgetting his name now, but the man was in the WWE. I used to watch a lot of wrestling, so I definitely recognized him. And then we get, after the event, we see Eugene. He goes, well, actually, no, first we get the speech from Pamela, who then, gives it to her son, who he starts to speak, and he had like the piece of paper or the folder that his mom gave him that she wanted him to talk about. Then he basically kind of changed it, goes from the heart. And you kind of felt that in this moment, he legitimately was having a change of heart. At least that's kind of like my thought process or he was just bullshitting politician, one or the other. But I thought maybe he was starting to think that, maybe I do need to change. And that's based on what he was saying. But then, not Pamela, but Max, hints to Eugene and plays that recorded tape where he's talking about saying, this is all bullshit, and his mom basically pre-chooses the winner of the lottery, and it's just to help rich stay rich and blah blah blah. Kind of like taking you into some modern politics. It kind of made me think about modern times, but then chaos starts to erupt, and the walkers are starting to show up, and Mercer, he gets up on the turnbuckle like he's The Rock. Like literally, if you look at that moment, it reminds me exactly of The Rock's pose when he gets up on the side turnbuckles. And this great, powerful moment by Mercer. Pam goes, where are you going? You're supposed to protect me. And he's like, my job is to protect the Commonwealth, ma'am. Incredibly powerful. The way it was delivered was perfect. Definitely going to go down as one of the best moments in The Walking Dead history. And then as all this stuff is going on, chaos is going on, you see walkers everywhere, and they're attacking people. And this happened very quickly. Ezekiel grabs Jerry's daughter picks her up, or one of his kids, and I thought that was kind of cool that, you know, Ezekiel was looking out for Jerry while he was gone. Keep in mind, Jerry went with Aaron and Lydia and Elijah, so he wasn't in town. So Ezekiel's, you know, looking after his kids. Then Judith gets separated from Daryl, and she finally, she kind of stares down a walker, and then, you know, Daryl saves her, you know, shooting the walker in the head with Rick's gun. Then, you know, she agrees to take it on. This was a big moment because now she's accepting, you know, what it is, and she wants to be, basically her and Daryl are, they're kind of, they're made up, and she's accepting that Rick's gun, this is part of who she is and what she has to do. Then we see Sebastian, you know, he pushes Max into this walker, and the walker's all on Max, and the walker's getting ready to bite, and I thought we were about to lose Max, but then Eugene out of nowhere comes in and throws that same walker onto Sebastian. And this was fucking karma, because not one person lifted a fucking finger. They just watch it. It kind of reminded me of modern days, like, you know, everyone's going World Star, they got their phones up recording. That's basically what they were doing to Sebastian, because no one gave a shit about him because he was a douchebag, like he said. And Judith ends up killing the walker that was attacking him, and this is actually the second walker that she shot. And then in the background, you hear the tape playing of what he was saying when he was talking to Max, kind of very Joker vibes. If you know, you know. But amazing, amazing episode. To me, this is a calm before the storm. If you watch Talking Dead, you saw the scene coming where, you know, Jerry, Elijah, Lydia, and Aaron are all in the woods. Jerry doing some of the stuff that we saw, like Jesus doing, like he was slicing and dicing. But when they're in that cabin, you see the doorknob turn, so we're about to get those variant walkers, and I am pumped for that. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video and that episode as much as I did, and I want to thank you guys as always for watching. But as always, you know, I love to give a shout out to my friends out there, and this one is going to Rachel Burt, aka Cosmo Mom, aka co-host of The Squawking Dead, and that's right, The Squawking Dead. But she is an amazing artist, got a great social media presence. If you're a fan of The Walking Dead, you need to follow her, check out her stuff, check out her art, without a doubt. But also I want to give a shout out because she was recently in a car accident, and thankfully she is fine. She's physically fine, but she lost, her car is like, I think I saw it was like around 8,000 worth of damage, and she has 3 jobs, and this is, you know, her livelihood, one of which she has to travel around the state. So I'm going to put her GoFundMe in there. If you have anything, $1 to whatever, or even if you share it, if you're able to share it and kind of get the word out. She is, you know, TWD family. She is one of her own. She's, you know, she's our family. She's my family. And we all love her, and we just want to make sure that, you know, we're able to help take care of her. So, you know, check that out. Check out her socials. Give her a follow. I promise you'll love her. And if you could, please vote for me in the Face of Horror. I'll put that down below as well. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I love you guys, and I can't wait for the next one. TWD family for life.